morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. So today we are going to be dissecting the elements of Marxism. The elements of Marxism. Okay, and the first element we are looking at today is actually the first one. But what are the elements? The elements are dialectical and historical materialism, the theory of class struggle, the theory of surplus value, the theory of social revolution, and withering away of the state, as well as the dictatorship of the proletariat. Okay, so now the centerpiece of Marxist political economy is the interpretation of history, which places emphasis on social classes, productive forces, and social relationship of production. So Marxism asserts that the economy is the substructure upon which the superstructure edifice, okay, of the society actually revolves. Okay, so now our our attention today is actually focused on dialectical materialism. Now, dialectical materialism is actually about the science of motion and talks about the primacy of matter over ideas. Now, the theory of dialectics is actually talking about two opposing phenomena. Okay, dialectical materialism, okay, is actually talking about the antagonistic contradiction in every society. Okay, but one thing we must understand very quickly is that when we look at dialectical materialism, we are actually looking at the theory of nature formalized from the work of Engels. Okay, and it supposes that all phenomena consist of matter and motion. So motion is the result of the contradiction inherent among demands in all objects. So, but according to Hegel, okay, that dialectical materialism asserts that, okay, that nature itself has a history governed by determinate laws such as such as quantity into quality, okay, interpretation of opposites, and the negation of the negation. So the motion of matter has been subject to transformation and development, particularly the transformation, from quantitative differences. Okay. Now, mankind is considered to be the highest stage of what? Of material development. Okay. As with nature itself, so human development is subject to dialectical processes of development. So the motion of any stage of society, is to be understood in terms of the character of the contradiction of its constituent elements. So the law of dialectical materialism can be looked at from the following perspective. The first is the law of universal connection. When we are talking about the law of universal connection, we are actually looking at the fact that the world is actually interconnected. Whatever happens in a place is not entirely new. The universe is actually, totally connected with itself. So whatever is happening in one place must have taken place in other places. Okay, so whatever phenomenon that is existing in a particular place has its roots in other places in the world. So it is actually important to note that the universe is actually connected. There is a concentric cycle that actually connects the universe together. So to that extent, according to the law of universal connection, the universe is actually one. What phenomenon actually happens in a place has a connection with other things that must have taken place in other parts of the world. So the world is not one. There are two laws actually governing the world. Okay, so that is actually number one. Number two is the law of unity and struggle of opposites. The law of unity and struggle of opposites. Now, what does that mean? Now, for development to happen, there are two opposing contradictory things that must actually come together to unite before development can actually take place. For example, before a day will break, okay, or before a child is born, two opposing phenomena must actually come together. I'm talking about the man and woman. A man and woman are actually two opposing phenomena that must come together to unite for a new life to be birthed or to be bettered. What I'm trying to say is that, okay, these opposing phenomena must actually unite together, come together for a new life to be given birth to. Okay, so it is with development. For development to happen, there must be, there must be an adoption of what happens in the past and in the present for the future to actually be reconstructed. That is actually the second theory, the second law of dialectical materialism. The third law is the theory of development or transformation from quantitative to qualitative development. For development to happen, there must be need for that development to actually move from quantity to quality. Okay, no wonder several developments that actually happened in the past was actually about quantity. It's about the size. It's about it's about the quantity. It's about the number. They are not actually talking about the quality. So as development continues, this size that actually talks about quantity begins to give way for quality, and there is a reduction in sizes. For example, we had the mainframe computers, when computer actually started. But today, what do we have? We have laptop, we have palm top. These are small gadgets that are smaller but more qualitative than the mainframe computers in those days. Okay, that is number three. Then number four is the law of the negation of the negation. The law of the negation of the negation. What does that mean? It means that before development will happen, the second negation has to negate the first negation. There must be a negation of the negation. Now, if you actually explain further, there are three phenomena that must actually be talked about under this. We have the thesis, we have the antithesis, and then we have the synthesis. So the first negation must negate the first one, the initial negation, before it gets to the last one. So the thesis is actually the initial stage of development. When development gets to its mid stage, it actually is antithetical to the first one, which is the thesis. And then when development gets to its peak, that is actually the synthesis. Okay, so what are we talking about? For example, if you use a human being, as a typical example here, you can see that when a child is actually a toddler, okay, that child is actually different, because at that point is actually the thesis. When the child grows to an adolescent or a youth, that child actually is antithetical to the first negation, which is the thesis. Now, whatever happens at that point of youthful period is actually negating, the thesis, is negating the childhood. And then when, the child grows to become an adult, actually to get to the old age, you see that synthesis actually negates the antithesis, and it has gotten back to the thesis. What are we trying to talk about? what we are saying here is that in every society, the law of dialectical materialism is actually talking about, the primacy of matter over ideas. That in the society there are two, phenomena, that must actually come together, to bring about the development of the society. That is what the law of dialectics is actually talking about. Thank you very much.